I'm Chris Oldman, Editor-in-Chief of Field Service News, and welcome today to part 3 of our series of excerpts from the recent video presentation I put together with John Hunt, Managing Director EMEA for Astea. The full presentation looks at the key trends amongst service-centric manufacturers and is a deep dive into some research that Astea undertook with WBR. The full presentation has been made available to fieldservicenews.com subscribers already. However, if you are a field service management professional, you may well qualify for a complimentary industry subscription. And if you complete the link below to apply for your subscription, we will send you a copy of this full presentation, and you can access that either by downloading the file or watching it online for exclusive access to Field Service News premium content. And so in this third installment of the series, John and I dig deep into the data that shows us all about the number of companies who have now adopted IoT platforms to support technology as a service, and how many companies have embraced IoT, how many are still dipping their toe in the water, and who is yet to do so. And talking of change management, perhaps there's been no bigger change in how service is being delivered than the impact of the Internet of Things. Beautiful segue across there. And IoT is huge, John. It's I remember writing about the Internet of Things a couple of years back, 4 or 5 years ago, and doing a comparison between IoT and mobile. And a lot of people say, well, mobile, IoT is going to revolutionize field service like mobile did. And I said, well, I think it's going to be bigger. And my reasoning for that was mobile just improved everything that we were doing, but it didn't replace the processes particularly. IoT is going to change, and it is changing the way we think about service delivery. We've talked about servitization and advanced services. It's the core of those. But even just shifting towards proactive, preventative maintenance, IoT is massive. And I've been kind of a big proponent of the importance of IoT for some time now in the field service sector. So it's really interesting, the data that came out here. 79% of organizations are now using IoT applications or IoT platforms to support technology as a service for industrial equipment. 45% of organizations have at least a quarter, 25% or more, of their installed assets IoT enabled. That's some really, if you think of the time span on that, this is happening at a rapid pace. Do these numbers line up with, I'll put this question to you in two ways, if I may. Do these numbers line up with what you would have expected, let's say if we were having this conversation 5 years ago, do they line up with what you would have predicted then? And do they line up with what you're seeing now today as you're speaking with service companies more and more, talking about IoT?
If you'd asked me this question 5 years ago in the service world, how would I have thought about that? I think I would have told you that we might actually have been a little bit further behind where we are today, just based on the level of adoption we were seeing with concepts like software as a service because of bandwidth at the time and the ubiquitous access of bandwidth. Again, not just in an office, but in a consumer's home and in the field in very remote locations, which I'm not sure the infrastructure was prepared for 5 years ago. But maybe even more so, the concerns around data security. There's one thing for me to allow, or for companies to allow customers, it's one thing for companies to allow software providers to host their very sensitive data and information in an environment and not completely control it. 5 years ago, the world wasn't quite ready for that as much as they are today. Yeah. And I think that same obvious concern applies to the Internet of Things, where I've got devices in an office setting or in a consumer's home that are communicating what a lot of people would consider very sensitive information. So 5 years ago, I think I would have said we would be a little bit further behind where we are today, just because of those primary barriers. Yeah. Where do I see it going in the future? I think because of that software as a service transformation that we've seen, where it's now much more the norm statistically and anecdotally based on what I can observe, I think the same thing will happen with the Internet of Things, especially because we are now able to, organizations like Astea are now able to compute a return on investment, not just on what happens with that device that's out in the field, but what happens when those many devices out in the field sometimes on different platforms in one of our customers' installation spaces, which may have been grown organically on their own, or if they're large companies like many of our customers are, who have grown inorganically through acquisitions, which might acquire a competitor who had a different IoT platform. So suddenly I've got two different IoT platforms that I'm expected to take all that data and convert them into information and then feed something that gives me an actionable insight and can even make recommendations, right? A big challenge for our customers. And we're starting to see a big return on investment. I think Jeff Bezos, the founder of Amazon, put it really well, which is the best kind of service is I don't have to call anyone. I don't have to talk to anyone. It just works.
Yeah.
And the same thing with IoT that provides that great actionable information, actionable insights based on the information that enables me to dispatch a field engineer and a part in a predictive way before it fails, and to delight my customer that says, today I'm here at your facility. I will have warned them in advance, but I'm going to come to your facility to replace this device that's likely to fail in the next month and prevent a critical downtime or just a major inconvenience. And that's what these IoT devices are able to do. And I think customers more and more are able to prove a very significant return on investment because of those things. And taking human beings out of the equation where they're not necessary and enabling organizations to invest more and more in the training and development of their staff, whether it be those customer ambassadors in the end of the equation and that extra mile of the service interaction, or even the back office dispatch workers, schedulers, etc., to enable them to develop more and more of their talents on the human side of the equation and take some of these things that can be automated that don't require human intervention. Just take it completely out of the equation and streamline it.
Well, this is where all of these these streams are kind of coming together as well, because we're talking about experience, and we talk about the work-life balance of the engineer and the engineer wanting to be there to delight people. There is a very fundamental makeup, the way I see it, of what a service engineer is. What attracts people to that role is a degree of autonomy. There's a desire to be a problem solver, and there's a desire to be the superhero, is how I often phrase it. An awful lot of field service engineers, I feel, should be walking out with their pants on the outside of their trousers. That's perhaps a British way of phrasing it, but the classic, a cape around the neck, and it's kind of what IoT is enabling, isn't it? Because it's taken away, and again we talk about automation an awful lot, but these things are all these streams all seem to be coming together to this perfect point where it's taken away the mundane. It's like mobile before, as I kind of touched on, but mobile took away the necessity for endless paperwork and reporting that engineers, that's not really, there may be a few guys out there, but I would wager a large percentage of engineers don't like the admin side of their job, and so embrace mobile. It's the same as IoT. They're now they can go in and they can understand proactively what the issue is. They can fix it before it's been an issue. It's a win-win for everyone. So I think that IoT is going to be a fundamental part of the future. I absolutely agree with you on that. Okay, so one of the questions that was put to the respondents was, among the following options, which is your biggest goal for the remainder of this year and looking forward to next? I wanted to bring all of these statistics out here because I think this is hugely valuable insight for anyone that's listening in on this, any service directors watching this, to be able to see what their peers are doing. So let's just have a little look through these. So the largest percentage, 28%, so just over a quarter, as we mentioned earlier, we're looking to increase innovation, agility, and put internal resources to support new service offerings. Just under a quarter, 24%, we're looking to carry out digital transformation, specifically to outpace their competition. So I'll come back to that one with you, John, because I think that's quite an interesting viewpoint there. A fifth, 20%, will looking to improve the technology they have to provide new service offerings. And I think that could possibly be linked back towards these new service revenue strategies as well. These revenue strategies are being driven by service-centric thinking. 16% are meeting evolving customer expectations with new innovative service offerings. Again, it's that point that we touched on, that double-edged sword of the the tools that we have empowering us to deliver better service, but also giving us, I don't think we've ever lived in an age where customer expectations are this high. And finally, just over a tenth, 12% of the respondents stated that their service revenue growth will catch up and offset their decline in product revenue. So there's some interesting kind of trends coming through on that. John, the one thing I thought was really interesting, obviously we've discussed the need for innovation, and we'll kind of gloss over that one because I think we've covered that in quite a lot of depth. But digital transformation, is digital transformation for you a one-hit conversation? Is it an ongoing process? It seems to be the big buzzword du jour across service organizations at the most. I thought it was really interesting. It's digital transformation to outpace the competition. What's your thoughts on digital transformation? Is it something that should be ongoing? Is it part of the continuous journey? Or is it something that companies should be looking at, right, we need to get ourselves connected, we need our assets connected on IoT, or we need mobile, or we need to move to the cloud? How do you view it?
Well, I think that it certainly is the term of the day that is thought of by many people in many different ways. So I think that one of the most important things that manufacturers can do is focus on their core competency, which is building the best product they possibly can in a very differentiated way, and enabling their staff to provide these wonderfully delightful customer experiences. And a digital transformation, asking these products companies to foster their own digital transformation, but can become quite challenging for many of them. And as I referenced before with the phone a friend analogy, there are many different companies across their entire ecosystem of what they need digitally transformed, from the factory floor all the way out to that extra mile, that they can partner with companies like Astia to help them out on that journey, to provide not only the solution, but the assistance, the justification for making the investments in the first place, but also the assistance to deliver on those investments.
And that brings us to the end of this excerpt from the presentation. Now, if you've enjoyed this content and you would like to see the full presentation, all you need to do is subscribe to fieldservicenews.com on the link below. Make sure you use the link below, because that is the one that will get you access to this presentation sent directly to you. And you will also then get emails that will keep you up to date with any new content we put out, whether it be white papers, more video presentations, podcasts, and research ourselves. Anyway, thank you ever so much for listening, and we shall see you again soon. Take care.